name is Sam Whiteout, and I want to talk to you today about a report that I read from the Urban Institute that talks about millennial home ownership. Now, I got a hold of the report from Better Mortgage, and that's a lending company that's trying to figure out a way that we can have a conversation with the public sector and the private sector in conjunction with each other rather than in sort of their own silos to talk about an issue that really affects a lot more people than just millennials. Now, as a millennial, this obviously affects me, and so I have a vested interest in knowing what's going on. The problem is that a lot of this information is not widely spread, and if it is, it's only sort of talked about on the surface level or in very, very quick sound bites. For example, millennial home ownership is down about 8%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 3.4 million people. All right, so I went through and I read the report because I'm a nerd and that's what I do. And there's 4 things that stuck out to me as very big problems and things that if we don't address them sooner rather than later, they're gonna come back to bite us sooner rather than later. So the first one is one that we actually talk about all the time. You hear it on the news, it's sort of generally in the conversation, and that's student debt. We all know that student debt is out of control in this country. We are borrowing a lot more money than our parents ever had to, and a hell of a lot more money than our grandparents ever had to. We're going to school more often. We're the most educated generation that's ever existed. And the second thing is that racial animus and racial prejudice still plays a huge role in folks' ability to get credit, to have access to capital, to be able to get a loan, especially for a house. So, for example, when we had this most recent housing boom, the only households who did not benefit from that were Black households. And that doesn't happen by accident. So there have to be ways in policy that we can eliminate the way that racial prejudice plays a role in someone's ability to get credit. So the reality is that it'd be really easy for me to be able to get a mortgage. That's not going to be the case if I was Black. It's not going to be the case if I was brown. And the fact that my melanin content has to do with my ability to be financially successful and have financial opportunities in this country is a problem, and it's racist. So the third thing that stuck out to me about this report is that there are just some lifestyle changes that are kind of neutral in a political way. So millennials are getting married a little bit later, we're getting married a little bit less, we're having kids a little bit later, and those 2 factors are pretty big ones when it comes to deciding whether or not you're gonna buy a house or buy a home. There were a bunch of stats in the report that really caught me off guard and ones that I think are indicative of much larger problems. The one that really just kind of blew my mind was 36% of millennials have student debt. But here's where it gets worse. Only 18% of our parents ever had student loan debt. Okay, that's double. That's a huge problem. That suggests to me that there has been a completely disproportionate increase in the cost of education from our parents' generation to ours, and in people's ability to be able to pay for it without taking on debt. So perhaps the biggest change that we can make, the biggest step forward that we can take to curb this problem is actually having nothing to do with millennials. We need to make financial literacy and financial education a part of every single high school curriculum in the country, period. So we've talked about some big problems, and they're certainly going to require some big solutions. But in terms of what you can do, the best thing to do is to stay informed. So you can go to better.com/spent-on-rent and learn more about the report. Don't worry, you don't have to read the whole thing. We put together a nice little summary for us. So you can do that, and then share your story, whether you're a renter or a homeowner, someone trying to be a homeowner, a former homeowner, whatever the case may be. You can contribute to that conversation and share your story so that we can come together and kind of develop the kind of conversation that has never happened before about how to fix some of these issues, ranging from student loan debt to Jim Crow era policies and the remnants of Jim Crow policies on the housing market, and everything in between. So we need to do this, and we need to do it now, and we need to do it together because we've got big problems and we need some big solutions, and it starts with little people like us.